All right, we are right at 10:02. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fund It Fast Chat. I am Rochelle Butler. I am the Energy Manager with the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization. I appreciate you all for being here with us this morning. I hope everyone's having a great week. I hope wherever you are safe and warm and dry. I know the weather in California has been pretty crazy these last few weeks, so we're going to get started in just a second here. I just want to mention a couple of really quick housekeeping items. So just make note that your microphones have all been muted upon joining the call. We only do that to minimize background noise. If you have any questions at all, I encourage you, please go ahead and drop them into the chat box. We'll leave a couple of minutes toward the end to address those questions or comments. Next, I would just like to invite everyone to go ahead and connect with us. Don't be shy, y'all. Our handle for Twitter, on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify is all at SJVCEO. So we try to keep that as simple as possible for you. And remember, if you don't catch all of this, you can access any of our resources by going directly to our website at sjvcleanenergy.org. Once again, that is sjvcleanenergy.org. All right, so over the past 5 years, so we've been doing the Fund It Fast Chat now. We have covered on-bill financing a number of times. So we've talked about how to use it, who offers it, what types of projects it can be used for, what rules have changed. I'll be sure, just as a side note here, I'll be sure to provide links for those past webisodes where we've covered on-bill financing in our follow-up email later on after the call today. So look for that. But we've covered on-bill financing. We've covered it so much because we believe in the program and we think it's a wonderful way for you to get your projects funded. However, we still have partners out there who have been unable to participate in the program for one reason or another. So we decided to talk about it. And what better place to have that conversation is right here at the Fund It Fast Chat. To help me with this conversation, I have invited Amanda Homa, who is the CEO, project developer, and consultant. She is a one-woman show, y'all, with the Parakeet Project Development LLC. And so Amanda's reputation absolutely precedes her in that she has an unbelievably high success rate in getting on-bill financing projects approved by utilities. Also, Amanda works with rural and disadvantaged communities, so she speaks our language. She's a very busy person, and so we are very lucky to have her with us this morning. Welcome to the Fund It Fast Chat, Amanda.
Thank you, Rochelle. It's so nice to be here. And much like your team, Rochelle, I am, of course, a fan of PG&E's OBF program, but I know probably more than most just how complex the program can be. And that's the very reason I started Parakeet. So just a little background, Parakeet was started as a direct response to a very observable need in this industry, that being that customers obviously want to benefit from 0% interest financing. Contractors want to be able to offer it, but it really takes dedicated effort, time, and expertise, kind of a unique skill set to successfully navigate these programs. So after working as a project manager through this program for a few years, I started Parakeet to fill that need. And of course, being a woman-owned business and a certified DBE, it really means a lot to me to be able to help customers in disadvantaged communities to achieve their energy goals. So thank you for having me today.
Awesome. Welcome. So we have talked to a number of our partners about this issue in preparation for this conversation. That, along with our collective experience doing this work, we've come up with a list of kind of common hangups, if you will, with OBF that folks are dealing with out there. Additionally, through this conversation, we hope that you will come away with some strategies or maybe some other ways to kind of look at these issues that'll help you get that first on-bill financing project approved by your decision makers and submitted for new projects. So one of the issues we hear from public agencies is that they are unable to take on debt. For example, there may be a policy out there in place preventing them from taking on what they perceive to be is debt. There are a lot of ways we can look at this, but I think the most important thing to think about is that it is actually more expensive for agencies not to take advantage of on-bill financing. So the goal of all of our agencies is to be responsible stewards of taxpayer and even ratepayer funds. And the best way to do that is to take advantage of on-bill financing. So how can I say that, right? Well, the first thing is there is a thing called avoided costs. And by utilizing on-bill financing, you are immediately reducing your energy costs because you're initiating an energy efficiency project. You're also reducing your maintenance costs because you're switching from that old equipment to newer and more efficient equipment. The other response to this issue is having to do with opportunity cost. And the opportunity cost, you can look at that twofold. The first opportunity cost is the first opportunity cost, I'm getting a little tongue tied here, that I want to highlight is when an agency is unwilling to take on debt, but they don't have the capital to pay for a project outright. And so that puts them in a position where they're waiting until they're able to appropriate the funding. During this period, the agency is waiting. They would have already been saving on energy bills, and they would be that much closer to paying off the loan in the first place. So that's the first example of opportunity cost. The other example of opportunity cost, and I have seen this happen way more times than I care to count, is while an agency is waiting until they have enough dollars to appropriate for the project, the incentives for the measures actually disappear. And this really breaks my heart. When we're talking about on-bill financing, there's usually an incentivized measure involved. Not always, because the rules are a little bit different. But this usually, the loss of the incentive connected to the measure is usually brings about the abandonment of the project. And that's really no good for anyone. So Amanda, I know you had some thoughts on this and a specific example, if you
Yeah.
would like to kind of talk us through
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Those program changes, those can be a killer. And in fact, that applies not just to the incentivized portion, but even to how on-bill financing itself works. So this is a very real consideration, and we can talk about a very real example right now. So at the end of last year, Assembly Bill 2208 was signed. So that means that starting 2024, screw-in CFLs will be prohibited from sale in the state of California. Now, we can already see the effect of that taking place in on-bill financing right now in PG&E territory. That being that screw-in bulbs are no longer eligible for on-bill financing. So not even talking about incentives, just the program itself, it's not available anymore. So with that same bill in place, starting in 2025, fluorescent tubes altogether are going to be prohibited from sale in California. So those are the standard T8 bulbs, T8 tubes that you see in your troffers and offices. They're super common. Now, if those become prohibited from sale in California, what incentive is there to help people to make this change to LED when it's already mandatory, right? So the trend for these programs is to become more restrictive. And the reason, again, is that they're trying to motivate customers to make these changes before they become mandatory. So of course, I can't guarantee what's going to happen with the OBF program next year, but we can see that the writing is on the wall. Now is the time to take advantage of what's available, because it really does change every year, or even more frequently than that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's just a one example. If you have spent any time working in or around these incentive programs, you understand that sort of revolving door of measures and opportunities that it can be. The next thing that I wanted to highlight really quickly is that though there are those of you out there that are paying cash to execute your projects. And I would like you to kind of think about something here. So if you have a ton of cash and you're paying for projects and that's no issue for you, that is wonderful and amazing. And we are rooting for you. We really are. But most of us don't fall into that category. And so if you are thinking about plopping down a significant amount of your operating budget to pay for a project, please understand that that money is actually worth more in your pocket. And so what do I mean by that? Well, because of the sheer value of money, right? The time value of money, the value of the money only increases the longer you're able to hold on to it. So on-bill financing provides a 0% loan. That interest rate will always be 0% for the life of the loan. The impact on your energy bill is minimal, if at all. And instead of emptying out your coffers to pay for an energy efficiency project, borrow the money at 0% and use those dollars for something else that would greatly benefit your community. So that really, at the core of it, that's where the value of on-bill financing lies. So we've prepared a bit of an example project here, if you will. Amanda, would you mind kind of walking us through this, what this is in dollars and cents, if you will?
Of course, yeah. So what we have here again is just a very simple project example. We pulled these numbers kind of from what a standard, let's say it's an office building and you're just retrofitting the lighting to LED. These would kind of be the numbers you might be looking at. So a lot of times when we talk about on-bill financing, maybe it's the first time somebody's hearing about it, they think, okay, I'm taking on this loan and I'm not going to be able to save anything until the loan is paid off. That's mostly true, but it's actually better than you'd think. And this is the purpose of the example here. So if we look at a project that costs about $60,000 a month, let's say that they are going to be saving 60,000 kWh. Again, these are very realistic numbers for a lighting project in an office space. Your ROI, your return on investment, you're going to be able to pay that amount off with your savings in 60 months, right? But what does PG&E do to ensure that you really are only paying what you're saving? They add a month to your standard ROI and they turn that into your loan term. So instead of your loan term being 60 months, your loan term is actually 61 months. Now, this doesn't sound like a huge difference, but if you look kind of at the bottom of that table there, this is what it actually means. So you're saving about $1,000 a month, but what you're paying in on-bill financing, this is all because of the bill neutrality, right? They're trying to not change your bill at all. So what you're paying back in your loan is $984, right? In this example. So that means you're actually paying in your loan $16 less than what you're saving. So you're saving $16 more than what you're paying off monthly. Now, if you look at that annually, the difference is almost $200. So again, these may look like small numbers, but when you extrapolate that out, make it a little larger, maybe it's a larger project, you're saving even more, you really are saving annually, even while paying off your loan. And this kind of ties into what you were saying, Rochelle, that it makes sense to use on-bill financing for your energy efficiency project. Save up that budget that maybe every other department is fighting over. Use that budget for something else. Give it to another department, because you can do this with 0% interest while also adding back in to your budget that little, maybe $200 a year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Amanda. And really, as Amanda was just explaining, there's no gotcha. So the utility really tries to set you up for success in paying these loans back. And that kind of brings me to my last thought on this particular topic, which is why would an agency have a policy like that? Essentially, that prevents them from taking on what they perceive to be debt and participating in on-bill financing. So to explore that, we kind of have to think about who we are approaching to approve and to sign off on these contracts. So if we're looking to our legal counsel, right, or if we're looking toward our in-house finance team, these professionals will by default be very risk averse. And so if you think about it, they're planning for the worst case scenario on all things. So it may be more advantageous to take opportunities such as these to maybe an elected official. Somebody like that might have a little bit more skin in the game in the event we're passing up on opportunities that will benefit the community. And they won't specifically look at it from the perspective of what happens if something goes wrong, right? And so I've gotten some feedback from partners that actively use on-bill financing. One of our partners in particular, I asked, how is it so easy that, you guys are participating in on-bill financing? And the response to that question was, and I quote, I don't want to be the person responsible for turning down a good opportunity that will save the city money. So there's, some things to think about. Now, the next issue that I want to talk about, and this actually came up fairly recently. We have an agency that we work with who absolutely sounded the alarm on the acceleration clause in PG&E's on-bill financing agreement. And so I'll read a little bit of that clause if you're not familiar with it. It reads, the entire outstanding loan balance will become immediately due and payable and shall be paid by customer within 30 days if, and it lists a couple of different situations that would activate that clause. If the account is closed, for example, or if it's terminated for some reason, if the customer defaults or becomes insolvent. I won't read the whole thing just for the sake of time. But yeah, we have quite a few thoughts about this. Amanda, would you like to take the opportunity to share your thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah. First, I want to say I can completely understand why that would raise the alarm for somebody who's in charge of finances at an agency, right? But something to keep in mind is that the on-bill financing program was not designed specifically for, let's say, a municipality. It was designed for several types of sectors in the industry. So industrial, commercial, there's so many folks that can benefit from on-bill financing. That loan agreement and this acceleration clause was really designed for businesses. It wasn't designed for local government agencies. It was designed specifically for small businesses. If you think about it, that's really the only place where PG&E could run a risk, right? If they're giving a loan to a small business, maybe they don't have a long time in their business. Maybe they're just at the 2-year mark, which just makes them eligible for the program. And now they're going to close down. That's where PG&E is at a risk, right? They're giving out this loan to a business that's going to shut down. Would that really happen with a public agency? That's the question. So what I like to say to people is this, especially because of the example that we just went through, bill neutrality, right? You're not paying more than what you're saving. So if you're not at a risk right now of not paying your electric bill to PG&E, if you're not at a risk right now of having your power shut off by PG&E, then you're really not at a risk of not being able to pay off that loan. There wouldn't be a reason to worry. Of course, in legalese, it's scary. Of course it is. But that's where, again, Rochelle, you said it perfectly. Bring in the right people who can discuss this, bring it to real world terms for your local agency. And something to keep in mind, just worst case scenario, if you needed to transfer the loan, you can transfer the loan. This is, not an easy thing to do, but PG&E has fail safes because, again, they want you to succeed with these programs.
Absolutely. That's perfect the way you explained that, Amanda. Thank you so
Oh, I'm
much.
glad.
All right. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next topic. So now there may be some project specific items that might be preventing an agency from participating in on-bill financing. One example is that there may be solar present. Now, there's more common than I would like to see, but there's a common misconception that solar actually prevents agencies from participating in these programs.
Mhm.
And that's just simply not true. I know, Amanda, you had some really easy to understand ways that you think about if you qualify where solar is present. Would you like to walk us
Yeah,
through that really quickly?
absolutely. Sure. Yes. And I can understand. And I do want to throw out this caveat. If you haven't installed solar yet, please don't do it until you participate in energy efficiency measures. It just makes sense to reduce your usage before you install solar. But let's say you already have, that's okay. So here's a really simple way to look at your potential eligibility. If you take a look at your monthly bills and you're only paying PG&E $12, $20, okay, you might not be eligible because that means you're probably not pulling from the grid as much as you would need to then save that amount and pay off your loan, right? But let's say you're still paying a few $100s a month to PG&E. That means you are still pulling electricity from the grid, which in turn means that you can save that amount of energy and therefore pay off your loan. So take a look at your monthly bills. Of course, if you want to really dive into it and know for sure, that's what I'm here for. I love helping out local agencies. If you want me to just take a look at what your usage looks like, I'd be happy to help you figure out if you're eligible. But that's just a quick little way to do a little self-check on that eligibility.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I know we've gotten that question a lot, or that concern a lot, and I love the way that you explain it. It makes it really simple, and it's in English, and so thank you so much for that. All
No problem.
right.
That's what I'm here
So,
for.
yeah. So we can't exactly have a conversation about on-bill financing hangups, right? Unless we also talk about those agencies that, for whatever reason, have just been able to fly through project after project after project using the on-bill financing program. So how are they doing that? So there's a few things to kind of factor in, right? So cities cities often have an approval threshold for projects. So look into this. I would advise you to look into this and see what that threshold is and who is at each level of the threshold. I know this sounds really obvious, but sometimes when we have opportunities like this, we have to be strategic about how and to whom we approach them. So we have one partner that never took projects to council unless they exceeded a certain amount, their policy amount, right? By the time they actually had a project that exceeded that amount, they already had a number of small pilot projects, right, if you will, to point to the success. And so that made it a much easier sell when they did have a larger project to put through that approval project, or that approval process, that they would be able to point to and say, hey, we've already done this. We have examples of doing this. It's been successful. We want to keep doing it, only on a larger scale. And so that is a much easier sell than a brand new project and a brand new, contract and terms and all of those things. So something to kind of think of, to keep in mind. What are other things that our OBF friendly agencies do? They have great relationships with their PG&E representatives. And as an organization, SJVCEO always advocates for this. We are one giant team of people that are here to help you get your projects done. PG&E reps can be instrumental in supporting you and advocating for the approval of those projects. So don't forget to keep them involved as you're doing those projects. So another great person to have on your side is an Amanda, and she always works really well with PG&E reps and third-party implementers. So don't be surprised, if you hear her name pop up now and again. Now you'll have a face to put to the name. So again, I just want to reiterate, lean on your political capital, because, as I said before, no one wants to be the person to say no to a really great project. I'd love to give the floor to Amanda if you have any last minute or closing thoughts on our discussion this morning. And
Sure,
we're kind
yeah.
of getting close to time here.
Yeah, absolutely. Rochelle, you've done such a great job going through these topics. One thing that I just want to re-emphasize is just what you just said. Having that core group that is all aiming towards the same goal, that is crucial. So that involves your PG&E account rep, involves you, dear folks. And it just involves the key stakeholders. If it's not your financial director, maybe bring in your energy efficiency manager at your public agency, or even your facilities director. They can give you true insight into what it's like to have to maintain all these inefficient equipment, so they can really help speak to the urgency of this kind of project. And again, knowing what to expect early on is key. So try to address certain issues that might be red flags early on. Learn the scope of work, discuss it with your PG&E account rep or with myself, and we're happy to set you on the right track so that you have a clear idea of timeline, clear idea of what's going to be expected, what kind of documentation is needed. All of that really aids with the success of your project.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And Amanda's contact information is here. It will also be included in our follow-up email after the call this afternoon. So, You don't have to scramble to write everything down. We'll provide it for you. That wraps up our discussion for this morning. I would like to pause here and open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and drop them into the chat box if you have not done so already. And while folks are, I'm seeing some chats coming through right now. So while folks are working on that, I would just like to remind everyone to please look out for our follow-up email later on after the call today. We usually get that out right about after lunchtime. That email will include a link to the recording of this Fund It Fast Chat, as well as links to any relevant information that we discussed this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and take a peek over at our chat box right now and see what we've got.
I love Alice's comment in here, by the way. Alice is from the city of Berkeley. She's a wonderful person to know. And she has some great insight. The city of Berkeley is one of those OBF friendly agencies. They're great to work with, and they've really been able to take advantage of OBF. So take a look at Alice's comment. That's really helpful.
Right. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for that insight. Let's see. I have a pretty long comment here from Alice. And Alice says, rather than go one project at a time, as you were saying, the City of Berkeley did an RFP for energy efficiency projects and signed on a couple of contractors who met all of the city's qualifications for projects under 3-year contracts. There was no dollar amount assigned to these contracts. We are able to add on-bill financing projects using this method without going to council. That is great advice. Thank you so much. We use the change order method, which allows us to update the scope of the contract with having to add money or time. The holdup is always on the PG&E side, but once we get the paperwork back, these sail through our signing process in 48 hours or less. That is incredible. Yeah, I will definitely thank you so much again for that in the background on that, Amanda. Let's see. Andrew has a question. Can rebates be put forward to lowering payments? Let's see, or be put forward to lowering acquisition or installation costs?
Okay, so let's see if I understand the question. Maybe, Andy, if you're talking about rebates in conjunction with on-bill financing. So rebates typically come after your installation is complete. So I'm not sure if that helps to kind of address your question. Yes, they can be, let's say your project cost is $100,000 and your rebate's going to be in the amount of $10,000. Absolutely. If you have an arrangement with your customer where they're not paying you up front for the services, you're relying on OBF and the rebate, then yes, those rebates go towards your installation cost, goes towards your overall project cost. But just keep in mind that you won't get that funding from PG&E or whichever utility we're talking about until after installation is complete and approved. Andy, if that didn't answer your question, please feel free to correct us there in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are at absolute time. We're at 10:30. So I actually have all of these questions. I'm sorry, we're not going to have time to get to all of them, but I promise I will provide responses to them in our follow-up email later on today. But I want to be respectful of everyone's time this morning. So I'll go ahead and I want to thank Amanda again. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
For having me.
Yeah, and sharing your time with us. I just want to let everyone know we will be back next month on April 11th for the next Fast Chat. We'll be announcing that topic here in the next couple of days. And I want to thank everyone again for being here with us. Just remember, just as one more reminder, go ahead and look out for that follow-up email after the call today. We will have a link to the recording of this Fast Chat, responses to any questions we didn't get to, because there were quite a few more than we anticipated, but that's always a good thing. We welcome the discussion. So don't be afraid to share the Fund It Fast Chat with your friends and with your family. Friends and family, coworkers. You never know how this information might help someone else out to get their projects done. And as always, thank you again. I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope you stay safe and stay healthy. And until next time.